Yeah, welcome. Welcome to this kind of, in a way, it's a very specific training space. It's about training how to use this one tool in particular, the Voice Blaster. And it will weave in distinctions from conscious anger work, conscious feelings work, other distinctions that come from other territories in the possibility management game world. And what I want to say about that to start is that mm, I've been using possibility management for about almost 4 years now. And what this means is I use tools, distinctions, thought maps, and processes that have originated in this game world called possibility management. And the purpose of possibility management is to be a space where love, clarity, and transformation come into the world for the evolution of Gaia, for the evolution of humankind as Gaian beings. And I study and I use these distinctions, maps, tools, and processes because they work. Because when they were offered to me with this, the communication was, here's some things we figured out work. Don't believe us. Do your own experimenting and let us know. Like, let us know how it goes because you have distinctions that we don't have. And so in this, and this just works for me. This works for me to be part of a game world where I am not told this is how it is. I'm told this is what we figured out. Check it out for yourself and bring us your research so that we can add to what we're offering the world or what this game world is offering the world. And so this is partly why I want to record it, because maybe it could be an offering that joins the many offerings that come from other possibilitators, and really to document too, like if nothing else, to document from my own research as I say, here's what I figured out works. Will you try it and tell me what you discover so that all of that can be woven in? So the Voice Blaster. I love the Voice Blaster because it really, my gremlin and my box, maybe my being, maybe part of my archetypal lineage has this like steampunk kind of quality to it. Do you know steampunk?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. It also has this kind of pirate. I mean, how would I just describe steampunk? Would be a kind of timeless pirate, mechanical, like, but not too high tech tools.
Hmm.
And
The tools that
uh,
you find around.
yeah, you can kind of MacGyver yourself out of almost nothing, and a lot of upcycling happens in steampunk. So so the distinction is that you have a Voice Blaster, and you may or may not know this already. I mean, you're here, so at least you're kind of believing me that you have a Voice Blaster. But who has used their Voice Blaster? Will you put up your hand?
I don't think I actually have.
Okay,
Like
cool.
like very like this. I think I've done a little bit of this, but not like because this is like I've had a really big hang up of this being a weapon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that. This is that I've discovered this is quite common. I didn't have it myself, but I've in talking to a lot of like some very seasoned possibilitators, I've discovered that they have the same, they have this thought where also this is a weapon and therefore this bang is violence. And I'm not a violent person. I, you know, and these voices are a part of me. This is another, I don't know if you have this, but this is what I've heard from some other people. So I don't want to kill a part of myself. And it's like, great. This is great to have on the table to be able to look at and decide about. You decide what you will do and what you won't do. So, and I'll put that to the side too, now that it's on the table, there it is. And the other part of this that I think kind of is connected with this violence part is that the voice blaster is powered by anger. Like a gun that is used to kill somebody is powered by using anger. And the consequences are death of humans, animals, destruction of things that people may not want destroyed. And yet the voice blaster is powered using conscious anger. In fact, you can't really use it very well at all until you know you have it, until you know that you have conscious anger as a source of fuel to take responsibility in your life. So these are some things that distinguish the kind of destructive gun, the violent destructive gun, even if it is being used in a kind of playful way, and it's these or this, whatever yours looks like. It can still help to kind of loosen the ties that bind and keep a person from using their voice blaster. So your voice blaster is a tool on your energetic tool belt. And a lot of people don't know they have an energetic tool belt. And again, don't believe me, just check it out. You know, there's this area energetically around my hips where I've discovered, yeah, there's my voice blaster. Mine is, actually stand up for this part. And one way to discover where your voice blaster is just to go reach for it and pull it out. Yeah, great. So pull it out and then hold it up and show with your hands how it goes for you. Yeah. Looks, Taylor, you've got a 2-barrel voice blaster like me. Paula's got a 1-barrel. Awesome.
Hey, we'll try it out.
An optional thumb part. Yeah. Cool. And voice blasters have been known to evolve and change shape. So there's that. So now that you know where it is and you know what it looks like, this is the physical body part of it and energetic body part of it, energetic reality part of it. And then it's fueled by your anger. So this is energy and it's anger. So it's part of your emotional body. And what a voice blaster sounds like when it's made is the sound of your voice saying the word bang. So will you try that? We could do it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, bang.
Bang.
Cool. So something else I want to let you know about a voice blaster is that it's for blasting voices. That's basically all it does, is blast voices. That's why it's called a voice blaster, not a multiple thing blaster. It's possible that it could be used for blasting other things. I've never heard of it being used to blast anything but voices. So the voices that it blasts are the voices of the parent ego state.
Is it just the parent ego state? Is it just a group of voices?
Yeah, like specifically it's voices. The voices come from how you have, each person has picked up voices from the world around you and internalized them.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of those voices is to keep you is to manipulate your behavior.
Yeah.
So the parent ego state voices kind of keep this child in check, and often immature, often, quiet and subdued and obedient and good. So part of using your voice blaster has to do with discovering the voices in your parent ego state. And when I say parent ego state, these voices would also maybe come from teachers, from coaches, maybe from siblings, from peers that we grew up with. Anything that has this parental kind of, I'm looking down on you, I'm trying to control you, I'm trying to tell you how you should be, how you can be, how you cannot be. So this is some of the language to watch out for. So what I invite you to sit down again and come back to the screen and get out a notebook or your beep book. And what we'll do for about, I think, like 3 minutes is start to look in your mental body into the mimetics that are kind of present, constantly present as part of your survival strategy, as part of your box, that and look for these voices. So often there'll be voices that are very familiar to you that say things like you should, or you shouldn't, or you have to, you can't, or you so they're the parental kind of criticisms are the most common kind. And then there will also be the positive voices that parents use to manipulate children. And those are things like, you're so great, you are amazing, you don't even have to try, those kinds of voices. So it's the criticisms and the praise that are designed to manipulate. So 3 minutes of writing where I invite you to just collect the parent voices you have. Are there any questions?
No questions. I mean, I have resistance in that I'm like, I guess I'm a little bit muddled in like my parents' voice and then my own voice is as a parent, and that's I'm feeling a lot of fear with that because I'm like, what do I say to manipulate
Yes.
my children? And that I just want to put that out on the table that's going on for me right now.
Paula, this is perfect because my children got their parent ego state voices, many of them from me.
Yeah.
And I got them mostly from my 2 parents. And yes, other parental voices. And yeah, this is something to let your heart break about, because it is manipulation. And of course it came from probably this idea that if you just got them to behave in the ways that would be socially acceptable, then they would be okay.
Yeah.
And this is what our parents were probably thinking too. So yeah, thank you for bringing that in.
And the resistance that I feel is around when, manipulating, it is manipulating children's behavior, and under the guise or assumption that I am helping them learn a new way. Because I work with kids, and I can think of an incident this morning where I said, why don't you try doing it like this? because the way that they were doing it, yeah, was not socially acceptable. And they were really proud after that they tried this new way. So like when it looks like a learning opportunity or I don't,
Taylor,
yeah.
this brings up a really cool kind of edge because for me, why don't you try doing it like this doesn't land as a manipulative voice. It lands more as a possibilitator voice, like like as a proposal. And and those are the kinds of voices I think that really work for human beings in their first 10, 15 years of life and beyond, to have that kind of voice come in and bring possibilities
Mm.
which are distinct from bringing something like how come you haven't figured it out already. That would be like, that's just a gremlin power trip that is really, it seems designed to, or the purpose seems to be to make the person shrink and
Mm,
like it kills intimacy. So
right, that
so
shrink
that would
instead of
be, say that again.
shrink instead of grow.
Yeah, yeah, and limit themselves instead of explore possibilities.
Mhm.
Cool, thank you. So 3 minutes collecting parent voices on paper. Okay. Just finish writing down the last one and pause. You can always add to this list, and I highly recommend that you do. I highly recommend that you kind of become a parent ego voice hunter, person who's really looking for for these voices to blast. And we'll get to the blasting part eventually, but for now I want to ask, like, what did you discover about what did you discover while you did that experiment of looking for voices and writing them down?
I discovered some really distinct themes in so like the masculine voices and the feminine voices. Like the feminine voices were all about sexuality. Like it was really primarily my mom, like, you shouldn't have sex before you're married. You shouldn't show your sexuality, da 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 da. And then the male voices, my dad primarily was all about credibility and work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It was really quite distinct. The subject matter.
Yeah, cool. That something about that, I feel glad about that because it kind of busts the myth that women are sexually repressed by men.
Mm, yeah, totally.
Mm,
That's how it's going in my voice queendom. I don't know.
thank you. Other
Mm,
discoveries.
I yeah, the voices were not super clear. I had a similar thing of, yeah, more my mom's voices were a lot about being quiet, and my dad's voice was definitely the credibility and work ethic. But the voices were, yeah, it wasn't, I didn't feel it wasn't like so explicitly you should. They were presented as options, um or just as the way it was.
Mm.
We, we show up. That's what we do.
Mm,
We go no matter what. So yeah, there's like, it wasn't like, oh, well, where are the times that I've been told I should? Like that wasn't a path that I could follow, because that wasn't quite it. And some voices were not, yeah, weren't explicit. They just said, oh, scary. And that was like, what was the subtext of that? Oh, don't do that, because I feel scared when you do that.
mm.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Just like again, how hidden, like hidden in plain sight. I'm hearing that, like just in the and harder, like yeah, again, not coming in the really explicit.
Yeah, I remember being told a lot, oh, loud. Like, and I do that to kids too. Oh, so loud. And it's the subtext is, please quiet.
Yeah. 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 Wow, I love this. This is so perfect that there are the more obvious voices, and then there are these subtle, subtextual voices also. And what I've discovered for myself about this is that some of the things that are more subtle might have been things that were said to me at a much younger age, but then were replaced by other things. And this might be, I mean, and there may not be a way to find out that, for example, there's like, oh, loud, loud, when you were 7 might have been be quiet when you were 2, you know.
Mm.
So there's ways that the voices changed through our lives, which ones we heard, and yet some of them are really still in there, in our mental body, like this kind of snow globe of like, you can't go past here, like you're not allowed out of this zone.
Mm-hmm.
I have this awareness too of how that goes for me with looks.
Right, what does the look
Getting a look.
say?
Yes, getting a look from my mother
Yeah,
in particular. Like it's just
yeah.
that hand.
Mm-hmm.
This is wild. I'm writing this down. Things that looks say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there an example of one where if you get a certain kind of look, and would you show what it is, and what does it say? Like, what's the voice that goes with it, even though it's not spoken out?
Yeah, like I'm really taken to a specific moment, Christmas Eve, when I consciously used my anger in response to something that was being said. And it was one line. And I really felt myself using my anger. And I wasn't yelling or shouting, but I was just the way that I said it. I got two looks from different parts of the room, one from my brother, one from my mom. And it was like furrowed, like it was like kind of like, and like kind of like this, like tone it down.
Tone it
Mm-hmm.
down.
You shouldn't, you shouldn't challenge. You shouldn't disagree.
Yeah, wow, that gives me a couple more from my list. Yeah. Yeah, and it's wild how sometimes these memories stand out about things that were said certain times, certain days. And and it's almost like it got recorded on a tape that I play again to to keep myself safe from people's judgments or criticisms, or from
Mm.
going out the social lines. Something I discovered, I discovered a bunch of new voices, of more subtle kind of subtextual voices that and it started with the positive voices. You're doing great, you really know this stuff. And then there was like, but there was this kind of, like, it went from these positive, um, praising voices to this but list. Like, yeah, and this one has come up over and over. Don't think you're so great. And then some really subtle ones, like one of them was, they're probably not thinking what you assume they're thinking. And it had this tone of threat to it. Like, don't be so sure you know what people are thinking. Worry, still worry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there was also this kind of praising pressure version of like, come on, you can do it. Come on, push yourself. Like, you should push yourself. Yeah, it was kind of the subtext of that one. You should push yourself. Like, try harder.
Yeah.
And here I want to add that it's not that these voices are bad or wrong. This isn't about judging them as bad or wrong, or even like deciding that maybe some of them are good and right. It's really about the consequences of having them in your head, in your mental body. Similar to what you were saying earlier, Taylor, with the like why don't you try this? The consequences of having a voice like that is that you find more possibilities of things to try, if that's what the consequence is. You know, they're like this one with the, you know, they probably aren't thinking what you assume they are thinking with this tone of threat to it, is very different from, well, what assumption are you making about what people are thinking? That could be that could be a great question to have in my head. And so those aren't really the voices that are for blasting necessarily. And a cool discovery I've made is that if I blast those voices anyway, they disintegrate and they might come back and be helpful another time on another day. And the cool thing about blasting the real parent voices that are part of this kind of energetic snow globe, like glass ceiling prison, is that the more I blast them, the less they show up. And again, this is something where I say, don't believe me, do your own experimenting and find out how it goes for you. So this is the next part that I want to practice with you about, is to practice. And what you might do is choose 2 or 3 of the voices on your list that are kind of the most, I don't know, the most insidious or the most manipulative, the most entrapping. Does everyone have 2 or 3 picked out? You just put up your thumb when you have 2 or 3 picked out. Thank you, Paula. I see your thumb.
Okay.
Was that okay? You've got some, Taylor? Okay, cool. Thanks. So this is experimenting to learn how to shoot voices, to learn more about how it goes. So there are 2 ways to find voices to shoot. One is collect them like this and then shoot them. The other one is to learn to catch when the voice is happening and then shoot it. So there's the kind of typical scenario, the ones you know come, and then shooting those. And then there's this in real time experimenting that you can do. So this is going to be the first type of experimenting, where you collect them and then you practice shooting them. So how this goes is you choose the voice you want to shoot and you say it out loud. So you say it out loud, not necessarily with a lot of anger, just say it so it's in the space, and then bang and shoot the voice. The voice blaster, this is what I was going to say after saying the voice blaster only shoots voices. You do not need to be pointing the voice blaster directly at the voice for it to shoot the voice. This isn't like, you know, this isn't a physical tool. It's an energetic tool. So the voice is always the target, and the voice blaster always hits the target. The quality of your bang is more what determines if it really hits it and blasts it. So some tips that I'll give you already about it are that if the bang comes from your center, it works better. And the cool thing is that this isn't about imagining, this isn't about envisioning, this is about an experiential reality of a voice, a sentence being said, the bang happening, and then you notice what happens. and you find out for yourself how it worked. And the invitation is that once you've said the bang and you're in this noticing part, you really notice until there's a sense of completeness of the experience. So what I propose is that each person choose one voice to start with, and then we'll take turns and we'll use the same sentence as, it's not really target practice, but it's voice blaster practice, and just share what happens. And then each of the people who are witnessing can also give any kind of coaching or feedback so that this can be used in the next experiment so that there's rapid learning happening. And does someone want to go first?
I do.
Cool, thank you, Paula. So I recommend you do it standing up.
Okay, yeah, that's the impulse I have too.
Cool.
So
And then,
Nicole,
yeah, you can have it out or you can pull it out as part of the experiment. I think it's great to try both.
yes.
But to
okay.
start, I invite you to just check that you're in first position with your energetic center on your physical center, your grounding cord in place. In we say the color, we can all say the color.
Maroon.
Mine is brown.
Red.
Thank you. And then your personal bubble of space and the workspace, the energetic workspace that we're in with its grounding cord.
You shouldn't show your desire. Bang. Bang. Bang.
Thank you, Paula. What did you discover from shooting that voice?
Ooh. um, I had to do the bang a few times to really let it come from my center. And it was the last one. Like I could feel like I was at first just, it was like the bang was almost like there was contraction and like, am I really going to do this? Like, am I really going to shoot this? Am I really going to kill this? And, you know, the second one was there was a little bit too much force. And then that third one was like really owning the bang.
Mm.
And it was really important in the experiment to pause and really feel like how that was landing in my, I'm saying, like when you talk about the snow globe, it's like, for me, it's so intimately in my personal bubble of space.
Yeah.
Like it's so in there. And I was like, actually then after feeling the space, like the bubble of like, oh, whew, this kind of changes everything. It was a little foggy in here.
Wow.
Kind of like a bad fart, you know? It's like, woo, woo.
Yeah. 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 Cool.
Whoa, that's, mm,
And will you say
whoa.
something about, so you said bang, you said it, and then you said bang, and then you said bang again, and you said bang a third time. And what I heard you say is that the third one kind of
It
worked
worked.
best.
Yeah.
And this is so cool because that's the sense I had too, was that you said bang the third time from your center. Like you
Yeah.
really nailed it. And yet it wasn't the loudest one.
No.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's really not about volume, which for me as a person who is wanting to be blasting voices out in public more often, this is great news that it doesn't necessarily have to be so loud.
Mm,
Yeah.
Mm.
thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to say about that first experiment?
I'd like to ask you, Taylor, for what you saw, what you noticed. Like to
Mm.
hear.
Yeah, I appreciated that you kept going because I could tell yeah, there's just there's something like after you did the first one, maybe it was just even this, like you licked your lips or something or did something like this, and I was like, okay, she was, there. Yeah, it's more in your like head, and I definitely also observed that the third one, although it was the quietest and um the most almost like monotone or something, but it held, yeah, it held it was like still heavy. That's what it felt for me. Had some weight behind it. So thanks for keep keeping on going.
A question I have about it, Paula, is something like, is that the real sentence? I mean, not that it's not a real sentence, I think it is. And is there another kind of subtextual distilled sentence that is is also part of that territory of voices?
Yeah, like I didn't use, like I have lots of them that has sex or sexuality, and I chose desire, which isn't as charged of a word.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, again, it's not to say that you blasted the wrong sentence or something like that. It's like, yeah, that was the sentence to start with, and then there will, I get this kind of idea of of when it's really like hunting in duck season. Like you shoot, you might get ducks to bring home for the pot, but there's some that are the biggest, juiciest ones, and that it can be like that with voice blasting too. I find that there's some voices that when I blast them, they're like, yeah, this whole, it changes everything. It's really capital everything, capital letters.
I I'm imagining that like how I'm relating to that, Nicole, is that there's kind of like the if you're to put the concept in like a nice and like put it in the most articulate way, like sometimes we write those out, but even for Paula's example, like the one that came to my mind that I've internalized is something like, is that what you really want? And it has it's different, but it has this like, don't say that unless that's what you really want or something.
Yeah, that tone of threat still.
Yeah, and then but so what are yeah, it's kind of like what's the colloquial way that it actually um is like said to you or said to me. Yeah.
The way that you've internalized. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just getting I'm going to look at my phone really quickly. I'm getting a message.
I'm really with this, the power of words and the charge, like the charge of words, the charge of language. And this is huge. Like just I'm still with the blast, like with the bang in it's like breaking, it's dispelling something. It's like like it's like being under a spell. And then to actually like blast it, to bang, like to actually dispel that. And like again, the opposite, like because I didn't choose the most the voice with the biggest charge. Didn't choose that as my first one, but I'm really actually seeing I don't know, like getting still within myself, the focus. And I'm thinking of biathletes. I think they're who cross country ski and you have to slow your heart rate down. Like it's actually, I really, that third one, it was like really about slowing right down.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And like it is dispelling this whole thing too about this being bad. It's just really dispelling it as like a tool
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
still
I
can
love that
hurt.
word.
Like it, because if yeah, I'm just thinking like it still can create messes.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it still could create messes. There's
Mhm.
still consequences if I'm not really discerning in what voices I'm blasting.
Yeah, and I would say even experiment about that.
Yeah.
I love this dispel and how what you said about the weight or the charge that words can carry, and that can be obliterated with a tool, with this tool. The word that I've been using is disintegrate, where these words have become these sentences. And I think of the word sentence as like, past sentence on somebody. Like the sentence when you've been found guilty is, here's your punishment. It's like these sentences that I've been using to create this prison have been I integrated them into my mental body to use against myself in a way to survive, because that's how it was when it was like that. But that they thwart me now in ways I don't want to be thwarted, and that I can use this tool to blast them and they disintegrate. And this is often how I experience it. It's like my bang pointed in whatever direction creates, coming from my center, creates this sonic effect of breaking the voice apart, and it just falls down to fertilize whatever.
I like it. It's an adult version of sticks and stones could break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I remember saying
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's like use those voice blasters to actually make it so those words don't hurt me.
I'm feeling a lot of joy in this discovery, this possibility that I feel now is available to me is like about being able to take care of my intellectual mental body.
Yeah.
Is I find often in possibility management, and I know we're doing feeling work, and I'm still getting there to drop into the heart and everything like that. And I often hear this like, get out of it, get out of your intellectual body. And I really am appreciating that, like, this is going to help me. This is going to help me actually be able to drop into my heart more. And I get to take care of this. I get to take care of this part of me too that loves words. And I'm a writer. I'm often in my intellectual body. And this is just giving me lots of possibility. Like I create a lot of beauty with words.
Yes.
And I'm just feeling a lot of joy that I get to care. Get to care for this
Yeah.
part of me that I actually really, this body that I really love. I really love my intellectual body. Yeah, I'm just feeling a
Oh,
lot of
yes. Thank you. I
Mhm.
love it.
Yeah.
The get out of your head sounds like a voice.
ooh, yes.
Write it down.
Yeah. Uh, and this, yeah, this reminds me too, like I'm saying parent ego state, parental voices, it's, you know, any voice that it's like it was taking authority over you, like telling you what to do. Yeah. Because it really it's so accurate what you say. There are these voices that tell us, give us these directives, but that don't actually work as directives. When someone tells me to get out of my head, I probably end up more in my head than when they before they said it.
Mm.
And this isn't to, you know, blame people that I'm in my head, and yet it's kind of how it can go.
I'd like to do a voice now if possible,
Yes.
because that I just want to like say the what you just said about um like the voice that I have is I'll do it, I'll do the actual experiment in a second, but the voice is don't say anything. And whenever I say that in my head, I continuously go over the script of what I would say. I try to like I say a bunch of things in my head, but I never say it out loud. And
Wow.
presumably, if I could just say it, then it would be done.
Thank you. You have the floor.
I'm gonna stay seated just because I'm a little hurting today. Don't say anything. Bang. Don't say anything. Bang. Don't say anything. Bang. Bang. Mhm. There is still this like the word don't still stayed. Mm, yeah. Can I share a little bit about what that process was like in my head?
Yeah, do. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm feeling some sadness because it doesn't necessarily like theoretically this exercise is easy, but I it didn't actually just work the first time. Um like I said it and then the voice came again and it came like this and then it came like this and then I just wanted it to be done, but then the voice was still there saying don't. And how, yeah, there's just some work to it.
Mm.
Is where the sadness is. It's not um
Taylor, what's this sadness really about?
I think the sadness is that I have voices in my head and I think that that's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel sad because you have voices in your head and you think it's not okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and what you reported is gold. You know, these voices, they have a way of getting more and more subtle to really keep trying to have their hold on you. And and there's something you can do about that. This is so cool. And that you noticed that it kind of, you blasted it down to just don't. That,
Wow.
yeah.
And that don't still feels like it has a big hold on me.
Yeah. Yeah, and now you know. It's more clear now that that is how it is. And I think that it's also more clear that you have a voice blaster, and when you use it, it can work.
Something can shift.
Yeah.
It would just be some awareness.
Say that again.
Even if the shift is just in an awareness of of yeah, like conscious awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, and this again is so the magic of experimenting. If you think about the first time you ever, I don't know, what's something that maybe has similar things to it. I don't know. I guess maybe the first time you ever tried shooting a bow and arrow. Like, I don't know about you, but the first time I tried, well, the first time I had actually beginner's luck, and I hit almost a bullseye my first try. But then I kept practicing, and I mean, mostly what I learned about shooting bow and arrow was like, watch out because you can really hurt your arm if you hold the bow a certain way and the string hits your arm.
Mm.
It really wasn't about hitting the target at all. It was about how I was using the tool. And I think this is often why a lot of people who find out they have a voice blaster and they get the instructions of how to use it, they either never use it or they use it and it doesn't work, so they don't use it again. And that it's really easy to think a tool like this isn't working or is only partly working. And then your gremlin can come in and be like, oh, it's not working, so don't use it. And yet I think you both got like this flavor of like, wow, this actually works. And yeah, what I want to add to that is it works even better the more you use it and the more you experiment with how to get it so that it does work. And this is, I feel, ecstasy. There's this joy that this is the purpose of this space. And I want to take a turn myself and ask for your feedback and coaching and share about how it goes. And my experiment, I'll do a slightly different experiment because this was, you know, what you each did was a first go of, okay, use this sentence, shoot that voice, find out what happens, report, get feedback and coaching. Great. And what I want to experiment with is kind of letting myself hear a voice because I'm listening for what the voice is, and to shoot that voice. And then this thing about keeping going, because as you kept going, both of you kept going with the same voice. And for you, Taylor, it shaped itself differently after a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And what can happen is that once one voice is disintegrated, another voice shows up. And it's like my box is, and my, I don't know if it's a bit my box, but it's a little bit my gremlin too. It's like, oh, if this button doesn't work, push this button so that this voice will come. And, you know, keep her safe, controlled, small in all these different ways. And I have enough kind of a connection and enough of a collaboration happening now with my gremlin that mostly he's on a leash. But still, when it comes to these more and more subtle voices, you know, it's almost like he's on his leash, but he's got his a little thing happening over here. And yeah, wow, I'm just right there seeing how voice blasting is has a little bit of gremlin training in it.
Mm.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this, right? I'm not gonna pick off my list. I'm gonna like literally pick them out of the air, pick them out of my mental body. You're taking too long. Bang! Something's wrong. You should stop. Bang! Something's wrong. You should stop. Bang! You're showing off. Bang! Worry what people think of you. Bang! Worry what people think of you. Bang!
Mm.
Good job. Bang. Wow. It's it's actually been a long time. I'm realizing that I did voice blasting with other people around. And what happened was after the first one or two, there was a lot of pressure in my heart. It was like my heart was kind of caving in or something. And that's when it was like, you've done something wrong. And after I blasted that voice, that went away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then there was this kind of joy that was coming of like, wow, that was really, yeah. And then this, again, this voice that's like, oh, joy's happening, shut that down. And after the last one, that was like some kind of, yeah, good job. Yeah, it was, I thought, well, I don't need to shoot that voice. It's saying good job. Okay. But then it also had this kind of tinge of somebody else is saying so. It's a good job because somebody else is saying so. And I just was like bang. And then there was just this standing in the consequences of of the standing in the consequences of the way what I've chosen to do has produced. And this silence where it's just what is. And there's nobody evaluating it or talking about it.
Mm.
And yeah, I realized this is another purpose for me to offer this space, because this voice blasting that I've been doing has created the consequence of there just being so much less noise in my head, so much less chatter, so much less peanut gallery happening.
Mm.
And from there,
Mm.
what my intellectual body can create is so different. Yeah, it's very cool. And I noticed some of the bangs didn't really come from my center. They kind of, and what I noticed about that was that there would be this fear, and then my center would be kind of up and out. And then when I said bang, it came from there rather than my physical center and my energetic center. And that was pretty new. Like, doesn't seem entirely new, but yeah, getting that fear rising means often that my center goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that if I do something from there, it'd be very different than if I do it from where I can do it when I bring my center back. Even in an instant, like one bang is like, oh, that one didn't work. Oh, I'm not centered. Do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any feelings come up?
Yeah, there's a little bit of sadness. Sadness. Yeah, I feel sad because there's, yeah, there's such a long history of shooting down my own joy
Mm.
rather than blasting the voices that are shooting down my joy.
Mm.
Yeah, I have a very vivid memory came of once when I was doing this training, and the trainer came and said, you know, you're really quite remarkable how you're doing this. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And they said, stay humble with it. And it was this, oh, it was this weird kind of like being seen and being acknowledged and celebrating, and then being shut down in that celebration. And it really did something to my relational space with that person. Yeah, and I feel sad because I see more clearly now how I let that stand in our relational space. I didn't have a way to say, whoa, wait a minute, like, I want to let you know what just happened for me when you said that. Not as blaming and accusing, but as so you can know.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been a lot of voices of that vein.
Mm.
You'll come to think of it, this is a big part of the resentment dismantling that I've been doing. That I feel joy to notice that, because I can bring more voice blasting into my resentment dismantling work. These things that different people have said at different times that, yeah, really, I kept that tape, I kept that voice and used it over and over again to keep myself small.
Mm. I noticed in a few of your voices, yeah, I have a lot. This is really interesting about how this might tie in with your resentment pieces. So you're dismantling that you had would say you should stop, and then there was one in particular that was so different, so distinct. Worry about what people think of you, or something like that. But the framing of it, worry about, was like, oh, is that inside or outside? Like it was just like the how internalized, how many layers of it is inside of you
Yeah,
now. It's like just even taking out the you should worry about how it's like it was worry. It was like,
yeah, it's really this external authority telling me to fear something.
mhm,
Yeah, it was a little bit like yours, Taylor, where it was like it just came down to don't,
yeah, yeah,
like, worry about this.
yeah.
Yeah, it just has this energetic kind of quality of like keeping this down, keeping
Mhm.
this closed, keeping this small.
Yeah, like the shorthandedness of it, where I was hearing it going like, how many of my voices do I just own as like that? Oh, this is me worrying about it. You know what I mean? Like this is,
Mm.
Yes.
so I get, I get all like it just your that how you're even declaring it now. This was definitely external. The way that I was hearing it was like how I just recognize how I just take it on
Yeah.
as oh, this is my stuff. This is my personal development work. This is what I need to work through. Ba, ba, ba.
Yeah. This is another purpose in creating and offering this space is I see it a lot in, like, when you said get out of your head. I find that these kinds of parental voices happen in transformational spaces, sometimes from trainers, sometimes from, our friend that we go to these spaces
Mhm.
with. They'll give this advice, this decree from above, these directives.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not saying they're bad or that they're wrong. I'm saying that the consequences they create, they're not always the consequences I'm going for. They're, there's like a shadow purpose often at work of like manipulate someone into being smaller, being, it's this purpose of limitation
Yeah.
through some kind of, and it can be so subtle, the tones, like you said, the looks. But when I really can hear the voice, and that I can shoot. I can't really shoot a look, but
Mhm.
I can hear the voice, that my voice, it's in my head, it's in my system of systems.
Mhm.
And I can use my anger consciously to blast that voice and disintegrate or dispel it. And then for me, there was this question, well, won't it just come back? And I find so far what I've discovered is yes, sometimes. And generally speaking, there's so much more silence in my head, in my mind. And this is cool because then when a voice does come, I can really hear it and be like, oh, is that one for blasting, or is that just going to float on out again? I did hours, years of meditation to try to control the thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
This just works to do what I wanted back then, which was just to have less of this mental chatter.
Mm.
And I'm not saying meditation doesn't have other uses that are perfectly empowering. I am saying I wish I'd had a voice blaster sooner.
There's a question that's arising. Like it's not that I hear what you're saying is directives are good or bad. For myself, I give myself directives to, I'm imagining everyone does, to get through their days. Um, I drink water now. There's, and so the ones that, like you kind of said, you could blast something and it will just pop back out and be useful. Um, yeah, there's just something in my journey right now of, oh, that this voice of my father's, which said, go to work and get a job, or, I'm right now I'm like, well, yeah, actually I really want to, yeah, I really want to have some money. So um, I really do want to, I'm not feeling 100% today, but I really do want to get up and so great. I'm glad I've internalized this voice. It's helping me pay off my MasterCard or whatever. Like the directives that are, yeah, the internalized voice, it isn't good or bad. Um, and yeah, I guess maybe there's been times in my life where I really want to shoot that voice, and then there's other times when no, I'm really grateful for that voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
What comes is that this is a tool to use on your path. And I mean, I suppose a person could just, where would it be coming from if if a person found out they had a voice blaster and just started blasting voices left, right, and center and disintegrating their whole life? I mean, I can only think that that would come from a voice that says you have to use this tool, which is just another parent. It's just another voice that's manipulating. There's this cool difference between when something tells me to do something and so I do it, or when I get the impulse to do something and I'm like, yes.
Mm.
And again, this isn't wrong, this isn't bad. And I guess I've decided at some point that I want to come more and more from here than coming from here. And it, I wouldn't have wanted it to happen in a shorter period of time. Like, even though I said I wish I'd had a voice blaster sooner, you know, I who's not to say that if I had had a voice blaster sooner, I would have just used it to try and manipulate myself.
Mm.
And sometimes I've seen people use voice blasters in a way that I'm like, what happened there? You know, be like, rah, 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 bang! And I'm just like, did it work with you doing it that way? And my sense is maybe there it was really their parent ego state saying, you should use your voice blaster now. Shoot that voice. And so it was more their gremlin, and it, you know, I didn't have in those moments enough of my own center to be like, what happened when you did that? Did it work? Because I actually, in retrospect, I can sense that I had a voice saying, don't say anything. Let them do it their way. You know, you have no right to, you have no right. Wow. You have no right.
Mhm.
Don't interfere.
Mm.
They know what they're doing. We just have 5 more minutes. I want to just add one other thing that I've discovered for you to take with you, which is that there there are often these times like what I'm describing. You know, this was happening and all these voices started and I got small. And I didn't really even notice that till right now.
Mm.
And often what's more obvious in my mind is I shouldn't say anything. I like, it's the voices more of the child ego state.
Mm.
We're like, you know, oh, don't say anything. Or like, what do I know? Yeah, that might have been more the child kind of version of a voice that was happening. That's like, what do I know? I shouldn't say anything. And this contracting, this smalling movement, even though what sounds more audible might be something like, I shouldn't say anything. This can be a clue to listen for the even more subtle parent voice that's saying, don't say anything. Or, yeah, this subtextual voice
Mm.
that's that would be that's the kinds of voices I do want to be blasting, or do at least want to be catching.
You're not blasting the child ego voices.
Yeah, yeah, the child ego state. The You know, this, in a way, this is all about decontaminating the adult ego state. So you have child ego state, parent ego state, gremlin ego state, demon ego state, contaminating the adult ego state, which then becomes the the opening for the archetypal ego state. And each ego state is really just a set or a series of attitudes, behaviors, postures, you know, thoughtware So the child ego state thought where is I'm not good enough, or I shouldn't do that. Whereas the parental side of that, because the parent and child ego states kind of play off each other. And so, and this is a clue about where you can look to the parent ego state when your child ego state seems to be activated, and find some voices to shoot. And just a little heads up about that too is that sometimes when I've when I've blasted a parent voice, it's really been having an effect on this part of me that hasn't grown up yet. I will often just start to sob. So if that happens, just that would be the other thing, is when the feelings come up, let the feelings be there. And that didn't really happen in our practicing today. And yet I wanted you to have that little heads up about that. And I invite you to use whatever was useful to you here to create some kind of next experiment about voice blasting. And I'll send you each a link to the voice blasting website, the Voice Blaster website, in case you want to use an experiment that's already been offered there. Else, yeah, by all means, create your own next experiment. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for experimenting. And yeah, thank you for receiving from my experiments things that I've discovered. And I wish you awesome voice blasting experiments.
Pew pew.
I discovered I have a double barrel.
Oh, well, that was
Yeah.
a quick evolution.
Yeah.
Didn't take long. Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Such joy to spend the afternoon with both of you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Till next time.